been brought up to me more than once, my opinion that everything we do and everybody on planet Earth is involved in sales. And that's whether your profession is a salesperson, someone who goes out and finds somebody that wants to exchange something of monetary value for either a good or a service, but also in our daily lives. Everything as simple as deciding between, let's say, a couple, which movie we're going to go see or where we're going to go for dinner is a sales process. It's one person trying to sway agreement from the other person. We do this with children. We do this in the classroom, which brings up, again, something that I've heard quite a bit, which is how on earth is it a teacher or a professor is supposed to get engagement and buy-in from students that are in the class, get them to connect with the ideas that are being presented, and actually go through the process of producing some of their own thoughts and learning, when it seems as if we're trying to force information on people that don't want to be there. And I was thinking about this from the approach of, would we be trying to sell, let's say, a student enrolled in a college class, which gives us, by definition, someone that on paper we would say is willingly showing up to class, because there is no law that says when you electively decide on a class and pay for the privilege of being in the class, that something happens to you negatively should you not attend the class. So on paper, we'd say, well, they want to be here, so therefore they should be engaged. But because I am close with several professors, but also other teachers, and I have two high school age children at home, I do watch and listen to the narrative that I hate going to this class because it's boring. And everybody uses the word boring because they're not engaged or interested in the process. So do we spend our time trying to sell these students on what us as the instructor, professor, teacher is trying to present? Are we trying to sell them on our idea? Or should we spend more time trying to get them to sell themselves on the idea of participating in the idea we're trying to get across? So in this case, I think of what I spend a lot of time teaching and instructing in the professional world, which is in my real estate realm, which is my profession. I teach real estate agents how to become better negotiators, better salespeople, give better presentations to their clients and the opposing side when they're negotiating on behalf of their client. Now, my rabbit hole and my school of thought and study goes into psychology, sociology, behavioral science, all of those things, and the reasons why certain phrases or ways that we act affect negotiations and people's decision-making processes. So if everyone's a salesperson and I am trying to sell somebody on engaging in what I'm speaking about, and let's take me, for instance, I sit you down and I tell you, so I'm going to show you today how to get somebody to agree to the contract, the sales price for a piece of real estate that you want. We are going to use specific techniques. We are going to use words. We're going to use body language, body positioning. We are going to use certain phrases. We're going to use certain psychology principles. And I'm going to show you how to use those to leverage and get in the mind of the party on the other side, okay? And influence them to do what you want. That sounds mildly interesting to some people. But the way I actually think about it and the way all of my notes are organized would be something more to the effect of, let me show you the behaviors and influence that affect the cortisol or dopamine production and how that affects the basal ganglia and causes the cerebellum to reason and choose a reaction based on your olfactory bulbs and the general personality of the person affected, as well as what's considered a cultural norm where we're doing this presentation. You go, what? Well, yes. When I tell you that the word yes and the word no actually produce different chemicals in your brain that your body then puts throughout your nervous system, that gives your body one or two ways of reacting, and your brain then follows suit. And I can show you how to affect those things deliberately in order to control a conversation, or in this case, a negotiation that might interest some people. But in all generality, most people that are going, I want to learn how to be more effective in a sales negotiation, is looking for the end result. Let me tell you what to say so you win. So if I make the title, say this and you'll win 100% of the time, that is going to be more interesting to the general populace than if I say, using cortisol production in order to influence the fight or flight mechanics of the adversary's brain to get what you want. What? But that is actually what we're doing. So if we take the same ideas that I use, I always say, look, I take something that you would study out of textbooks and medical texts. You'd learn and look at how they're practiced in daily behavior, the points that work, the points that don't, refine them down to the situations we're going to find ourselves in, and learn just that part, not the reason why it works, not the chemistry that goes on behind the scenes, but just do this. People go, well, okay, how do you come to that? Well, the way I envision it is I take what I want to present and I try and go, could I go to a junior high classroom? And could I present my idea well enough, concise enough, and interestingly enough that the class of junior high students would understand what I was talking about, and I'd have a decent chance of keeping them interested by showing them, by using what it is I'm telling them to do, they could get something they want. Something they want. Here comes the sales part. See, I'm not selling anything other than trying to get attention and influence behavior. That's some serious sales right there. Not as simple as getting somebody to buy the car I'm selling. It's actually trying to get somebody to give up their talk in their own head and making everything about them, getting them to accept ideas I'm putting into their brain, and getting them to act on it. That's sales. So therefore, to me, a college professor is stuck with the same boundaries. They are trying to speak to a classroom full of humans that are all in different places, not only in their life, but in that moment. And you're trying to sell them on an idea that makes them think that is either going to influence their future behavior or allow them to solve a problem in the future that they may encounter. So how do we put together a course or an exercise that would engage our larger populace of the classroom or lecture hall that we're speaking in? And the first is, we have to recognize the fact that people find things boring because they're not engaged. Okay, that's fine. Or because they don't understand it. So if we make it so they understand, we have a better chance of getting them engaged. But we can also find a common denominator in all humans. What are they most interested in? Themselves. All of us. We're more interested in me, themselves, than we are on an idea or the person across the table from us. So if we structure lessons and things we ask that, one, are simple enough for somebody to understand so that we don't just speak about hypotheticals that go over their head, we show that there's a purpose and a, let's say, bigger picture gain from listening and thinking about what we're presenting, and we make it about them, we have an even better chance of getting attention and perhaps affecting more of the people that are in front of us that we're trying to speak to. So in the course of, let's say, critical thinking, English, being able to write, put together an opinion, to be able to debate, we'll just call it all critical thinking, but we're going to base it around literature. What if we take the most general principle any of us remember from school, let's say book reports. Read this book that I'm going to make you read, and then give us a summary of it, hence a book report. Tell me what you read. That works in some context, especially when people are younger, because as an authority figure, a teacher or a professor or a parent, you can often dictate to somebody what action they need to take, okay? And that does follow us around, obviously, to adulthood. I mean, we talk about following directions from someone in uniform, like a firefighter or a police officer, or someone higher in the rank corporate-wise when we're in the employment field. But as opposed to pulling rank automatically, I'm your professor, you're the student, you will do what I say, what can we do to take this same idea and expand it so somebody has to find a way to be engaged in it and to do some critical thinking? So we flip it around. Let's say, find a literary character that mirrors some of your thoughts, some of your behaviors. I don't care what book it is. I don't care what story it is. A short story, a long story, a novel, a biography, modern, historical. Find something that interests you. Look at the characters and figure out which character would be closest to you. Now, if we leave it just there, we've got a good start. But what if we take it further and we say, as opposed to a character that mirrors your personality, let's get specific about what kind of personality that is. Now, the world is full of personality tests. And a lot of the reason for that is exactly that people are most interested in themselves. So they love to take tests about themselves. I believe this is the same reason why people really like astrological signs, because they are able to read somebody talking about what they fall under, and then they can assign, under confirmation bias, assign whatever the horoscope says to them, or whatever personality type, let's say a Taurus supposedly has, to them because they were born in early May. It makes it about me. So let's say I'm going to tell you, you need to find a character from a book. And you need to find one that most closely matches one of four personality types that you have. Let's just say there's four personality types. There's the driver, there's the analytical, there's the amicable, and there's the expressive. Now, you can look these up. There's about 100 versions of this, but let's just make it stupid simple. A driver is your stereotypical type A personality. The person in charge, the person that dictates directions, the leader, the one that usually doesn't take a long time to decide on something. They're the ones that are like, let's just go. All right, great. Amicable is somebody who likes to keep the peace. They like to make sure both sides win. Everybody in the room is happy. These are great people. These make great friends. They make great parents. By the way, there is no bad personality type or better personality type. There's just a different personality type, period. And some can work better in some situations than others. We also have the expressive. Now, the expressive is somebody often who talks with their hands. Their voice is not monotone. They're the people that get excited. These are usually your party planners. These are the ones that when you say we're throwing Johnny a birthday party, they're the first to step in line and think about decorations, where it should be, what kind of cake, what songs are we going to sing, what kind of music, and they're going to be the ones that are up dancing. They're very social creatures. Fantastic. All right. Then you have the analytical. These are the people that typically like the information, be able to dissect the information, and either look for results like solving an equation or recognizing patterns in order to make decisions. Everybody effectively is more one of these personality types than another. So you choose. Out of 4, it becomes pretty easy to pick somebody out and say, you're more or less that. The other part of this, though, is under stress circumstances, and I don't mean stress necessarily as a bad thing, but when a lot is put on somebody, they take on traits from another personality. So for me, I am very much a driver. And under other circumstances, I'm an expressive. So I am a driver that's expressive. That's my personality type. So if we teach that lesson first, and we have somebody do a self-assessment, okay? An audit on their own personality. Where do you fit, John? John, where do you fit on this grid? What is your primary and what is your secondary? Now, your job is to go in and find a character in a story that also shares those character traits. Okay, fair enough. Simple. Sounds like a book report. But the key is explaining to students not just to pick up random books and read until they identify a character, perhaps utilize some modern tools, a Google search, or God forbid, let's invoke new technology like AI. Let's talk about find me a literary character from books, or find me 10 examples that the character has a driver, personality, and also some expressive. You're going to get a list. All right, now let's look at each of these characters, what book or story they exist in, and let's see which one most interests you. Now, read that book. Make some notes about where that character trait comes out in the story as this character tries to exist in the little ecosystem that exists within this story. Are they somebody that's solving a problem or causing a problem or helps support the person who solves the problem in the book? You know, getting the princess to wake up and marry the prince. Are they the prince? Are they the princess? Are they the co-hero that follows the prince around? Are they the horse that the prince rides on? What are they? How did that person in that story solve the problem they were up against? Because that's what a story is. You know, protagonist, antagonist, there's some sort of problem that needs to be solved. We can talk about the usual storytelling or script lines where, you know, there's a problem and they fight back from the problem and then at the end succeed. Okay, great. What parts of their personality helped influence the result of that story? So from point A to point B, what happened? What can we see in their personality that helped these different things along the way fall into place to get to this outcome? Now, if we discern it and we say, would you have followed the same sort of track from going to point A or from point A to point B using the way you behave with that personality type that is sort of shared with the character in this book, would you have arrived at the same ending, the same conclusion? The answer will usually be yes. So now we get into further critical thinking. We say, all right, great. Now that we've recognized that you're a driver and that's your primary personality trait, all right, and you have the emotional side that comes out to where you move your hands around a lot and you're very expressive, okay? So the character has that, you have that. Now let's take the same character and let's make them someone who is an analytical. They're really into facts and figures. And their second personality trait is to be amicable. They want everybody to be happy. They don't like to upset people. They want the scenario to just be cool. They don't want the villain. They don't need to be the hero. They just want the end result to be cool for everyone. But they get there by analyzing patterns, by using intellect, by not reacting instantly, taking more time to strategize and prepare a plan and then executing that plan. How would that change the story? The middle part of the story, the person starts at A, but instead of being heroic and just taking charge and going for it and, being able to express their ideas and being able to get along with people, but also being able to put them in their place, but never taking long to make a decision and ending up at this. What if we changed that character and now they saw the problem and they sat and they researched and they looked at patterns. If I do this, this happens. Or I'm going to add all these figures together and come up with a likely equation that has the best odds of winning. Tell me that story now where the starting point's the same and the ending point's the same, but the middle, how we got to that ending point changes. How does it change with that new personality type? Then we ask, now that you've put that together, how somebody is like you and they went through this and got here, and then we changed their personality but made them go from here to the same ending. What decisions and circumstances in your own life could you maybe leverage other strengths out of a different personality type that would help you get to the end result that you want easier than the way you would naturally go about it? Taking the same framework of trying to critically think, and I think we can pretty much all agree that as we learn more things, we start to realize how many things we actually don't know. And hopefully that inspires us to take some action on learning things we either didn't know existed or we didn't understand how they worked. So one way, both emotionally and being able to critically think, that I always liked is the argue the opposite opinion or situation or stance, which I actually learned when I was a kid from The Cosby Show. And it was the basic scenario where the teenage kid wants to go to a party. And parents were not particularly happy with the idea of child going to said party. Obviously, are you going to be riding with, a young driver? Is there going to be drinking or drugs at the party? Are you going to be home late? We have to get up tomorrow morning at a reasonable time because we've got to go see your grandma. And so the parents are already structured into the idea of saying no. It's too dangerous. I don't want to worry. I don't like this stuff. But the way they present it to the child is simply, no, you cannot. Which of course is not going to be sufficient for the child, which in this case wants to go have fun, go to a party, and there's a lot of things the parents may not be thinking about. The popularity part, the social pressure, and everybody else is doing it sort of mentality. And if I just sit at home and go to bed early on the weekend, I'm missing out. Cool things will happen. I won't be engaged with my friends. Maybe there's a girl there that I like, and this will give me an opportunity to be cool, maybe get to know her better and make her my girlfriend. And I want to experience this, and it's worth it to me to be out late at night. And I also want to prove to you that I'm responsible, which hopefully down the line will let me give me more responsibility and more opportunity to do things, okay? But realistically, all that's presented is child going to parents going, I want to go to the party tonight and Samantha's got to drive me and you got to let me do it because everybody else is. And the parents saying, no, I'm not comfortable with you getting driven by Samantha. And I don't want you at a party where I don't know if the parents are home because you could do drugs or drink and get in trouble. And then we're also going to be late tomorrow because you're going to be too tired to get up. All right, neither side really understands each other. So how do we create this in a lesson that causes someone to think and understand where the other side's coming from? And the way I always teach this in the business environment is we're better negotiators if we understand what's motivating the other side, so that not only can we make a strong case to perhaps change some of their thinking and get them to accept our way, but somewhere along the way, we may find things that are important to the other side that don't matter as much to us that we can concede on. But how would we teach this sort of thing in more of an English class environment as opposed to, let's say, a speech and debate, which I do believe if we really extrapolate all of schooling, all of learning in life is all related to being able to negotiate opinion and basically straggle for trying to gain attention, and which all comes back to sales. But what if we presented a classroom full of students and we say, all right, we're going to take a hot button topic and we're going to divide you up. We're going to split the room down the middle. So as of like right this second, we could simply say, let's talk about Ukraine. Who here wants to stand with Ukraine and who here wants to be America first? And we divide the classroom. And we don't even go into an argument on either side. We say, here's your assignment. You that are not wanting to continue with sending money to Ukraine or anything Ukraine wants, we're just going to call it America first side of the room. You are going to go and spend the next week using the internet, AI, news articles, conversations with people, and you are going to learn the other side, the I stand with Ukraine's argument. You're going to understand it inside and out. And you are going to put together a short argument for the I stand with Ukraine movement or side of things. That's what your assignment is to think like the other side. And for you guys that are on the side of, I stand with Ukraine, our current administration, our fascists, and our Hitler, and whatever the new buzzwords are, you are going to put together an argument in favor of the America First, our current administration's point of view. You're going to make an argument as if you're with them. And it's not satire. I want you to dissect and understand whatever it is emotionally you side with, you are going to learn and present to me an argument and thought process pro the side you don't agree with. And there's a lot of things that are uncovered. I think the biggest one that gets uncovered when we do something like this is we realize that we've basically misrepresented the other side in our own psyche. We realize how much confirmation bias we have in ourselves. We also realize how much of the total situation, if you zoom out and look at it from a really high level view, how much of this we really don't understand. And when we dig in, we start to realize, oh, I can see how that person I disagree with might come to that conclusion. And if we zoom out far enough, in most situations, we realize the end goal that everybody wants is the same thing. We just have a different way of thinking what is right and the best way to get there. So if we make somebody switch sides and present an argument on a side they actually disagree with, they start to learn how to become better negotiators, do better research. They learn more about a subject than they would have otherwise known. And in the course of it, it actually might make them more compassionate, more open. And I'm not talking about changing somebody's opinion permanently on this particular subject, whatever subject matter that might be, but making them understand that there's not always just a right, wrong, or correct, incorrect, that the nuance in the way people get there can be influenced not only because of their social circle, but also because of the information they bring in. And you realize perhaps you've been in your own echo chamber to where all you've been listening to are reasons to agree with what you already believe. And when we break down those walls, we get into what the most important part of raising human beings, I think, is, which is to teach them how to think, not teaching them what to think. So it doesn't have to be something as polarizing as Ukraine or Democrat or Republican or, human rights versus non-human rights. I mean, in my own household, I can have this conversation and debate start by posing the question, which is better, PlayStation or Xbox? All right, now switch sides and present me the argument that you don't agree with convincingly. We can do the same thing on any subject matter. There just has to be a topic that people have an opinion on. A or B. That's it. So I don't know. Give it some thought.